And I also like how Jimmy Hart did his splash, Ming no sold it. He's getting held down by these people, and Jimmy Hart splashes him, and then he just gets up. Like, you are not gonna, I'm not selling for you.
So the ref makes a silly, overdramatic gesture. The match is now indeed a street fight. So Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge go running into the back again. They come out with some of Raven's Looney Tune weapons.
They go to the back during the match.
And it indeed turns into a bullish Looney Tunes match because fat up Public Enemy can't do anything else. They do a double sleeper hold spot, then a double jawbreaker spot. And Shivani goes on and on about how we see something different every time at WCW, even though we've already seen that spot, that exact spot. I think those same exact people too.
Even when they did the announcement, they said he proclaims to be television champion, Stevie Ray. So Chavo is claiming that he's the champion to a guy that's also not the champion. That's what I gathered.
It is interesting that they had the World Heavyweight Champion in a Battle Royal on a pay-per-view.
And it seemingly was for nothing. Yeah, I love those.
And this would also be the second pay-per-view that Goldberg has been champion that he has not main evented.
Well, I mean, you got the mighty Jay Leno. Of course, you can't main event a pay-per-view.
Oh boy, do we have a doozy of a show tonight. WCW Road Wild 1998 starts off with a video package. Hogan, Bischoff, Leno, and DDP are featured. We find out that this whole fucking thing was DDP's idea because he suggested the tag match. Because we hear a voiceover of DDP suggesting to Leno, like, oh, we need to tag together. Take them out. Hogan came to the Tonight Show and got Leno's face. And when Hogan shoved Leno, Leno shoved Bischoff, so he's smart. DDP comes out of nowhere, beats the fuck out of Hogan. I'm assuming it was live, so I wonder what the live audience thought about that.
Well, it being Hogan, he would have concerned himself was, we gotta make it look real, brother. So at least there's that.
Well, Hogan and Bischoff end up getting arrested at the Tonight Show.
There you go.
Yeah. And we go to the Black Hills of South Dakota for the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally that happens to have an annual wrestling pay-per-view smack dab in the middle of it. Mike Tenay, Tony Schiavone, and Bobby the Brain Heenan are on commentary. Schiavone lets us know that the main event will indeed happen, and the team of Hogan and Bischoff are going to take the match real seriously. Tenay said this feud began as a war of words when the Tonight Show and the NWO started talking shit to each other. Then Bischoff went completely over the line, so we're going to settle it tonight. Schiavone tells Heenan that DDP has been training Leno, so he's an ass kicker now. And Heenan says he heard from the back that Leno's going to surprise us. He's ready and he's in shape. But what's really on Heenan's mind is the Battle Royal later. Heenan lists off a whole bunch of NWO guys, then Goldberg. Heenan wonders who's going to throw Goldberg over the top rope. Goldberg is the World Heavyweight Champion still, by the way.
Yeah.
Then they kick it to Mean Gene. Gene is straddling a motorcycle on the entrance ramp, and then he thanks a motorcycle company, and that is it.
And I think they said Gene has something special to show us or something like that, too.
Well, thank God he didn't whip it out. And then we start off with the Barbarian and Ming in a special grudge match. Ming has been gone and recently returned, I guess. And since then, he's been targeting the Barbarian for some reason. So they start off by beating the fuck out of each other and then yelling in Tongan. Ming did E Honda's hand slap thing to Barbarian, which was cool. Ming hits a pile driver, goes for a diving headbutt, misses. Jimmy Hart distracted him briefly. And then Barbarian hits a belly-to-belly suplex from the top rope, which seems to be like his go-to move. Like, if I'm going to learn one wrestling move, it's going to be a belly-to-belly suplex.
Oh, it looks good when he does it.
Ming hits a power slam. Jimmy Hart gets on the apron again. Ming goes after Jimmy. Barbarian attacks Ming from behind. So then they chop each other. And it's like they're slapping oak trees because neither one of them are reacting. They're just absorbing. And then they start working headbutts in with the chops. So it's chop, chop, headbutt. It's ugly. It's uncoordinated. It's slow. It's great. So the Barbarian drags Ming out of the ring just to slam him headfirst into the steel steps. Then back in the ring, Barbarian gives Ming a back body drop. Ming just stands up and gives Barbarian the Tongan death grip 1, 2, 3. And after the match, Ming won't let go of the Tongan death grip, so Jimmy Hart comes in. He just starts wailing on Ming, who still won't let go. Hart calls help from the back. So out comes Hugh Morris. They beat the fuck out of Ming, who sells the ass beating by he just stops moving. They're stomping on him, they're wailing on him, and Ming just doesn't move. So Jimmy Hart climbs the top rope, hits Ming with a splash while Morris and Barbarian hold him down. Ming starts to fight back, but they beat the shit out of him again. Hugh Morris hits Ming with a no laughing matter. And then out comes Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Because
After
why
all.
not? Duggan beats the shit out of Barbarian and Morris with a 2x4. And then Ming leaves, and Duggan, who has no affiliation with this match whatsoever, celebrates while his music plays.
Yes. The American Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes out there with his music.
I mean, I love me some Duggan, but it's kind of out of left field.
I was confused as to who was even the babyface because yeah, they said initially that Ming was targeting Barbarian, and then after the end of the match, he got the tongue and death grip and then didn't let go. But then he gets jumped. But at that point, it could be defense because he wouldn't let go of the tongue and death grip. But yeah, towards the end there, who was the face of this whole thing.
Yeah, Duggan let us know.
Yeah, and I also like how when Jimmy Hart he did his splash, Ming no sold it. Like he's getting held down by these people, and Jimmy Hart splashes him, and then he just gets up. Like you are not gonna. I'm not selling for you.
I just like the Hacksaw came out for no reason.
I didn't even know he was with the company. To
Right?
be honest. Like, when was the last time we even saw him?
I think it was when Luger beat Hogan. It was when everybody was in the ring celebrating because Hart was there and he had like a moment with Hart.
Oh, yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a minute ago. So I think it's a good time to point out for no particular reason that the Road Wild events were completely free to attend. Dancing Fools versus Public Enemy. Dancing Fools are, of course, Alex Wright and Disco Inferno, and they somehow managed to find a third fool, who happens to be a Japanese wrestler called Tokyo Magnum, and he made sure to run to the ring to dance with Alex Wright and Disco at the beginning of the match. Public Enemy came out with their stupid theme music, bringing out 2 tables with them. The crowd likes them because they can wave their hands to their theme music, though. Jay-Uso.
Not on that level.
The whole stadium was waving their hands.
All right, then make them champions.
Alex Wright and Rocco Rock start. They don't do anything. Then Disco gets tagged in, starts dancing.
You forgot one important part of this. This is a traditional tag team match.
Oh, yes.
With rules.
I didn't think I had to say anything. But yes, you're right. This is a traditional tag team match. Disco gets tagged in and starts dancing. This pisses off Rock, who errantly charges after Disco. Disco catches Rock with the schoolboy. And then Disco goes to the floor so all the dancing fools can just start dancing like idiots. And then, God, and it's like the dance that Alex Wright does. That Saturday Night Fever shit. That was the most surreal thing I've ever seen. These grown men in costume just dancing on the fucking floor. So then Alex Wright gets tagged in. He hits Johnny Grunge with a missile dropkick. Then Tokyo Magnum hands Disco a trash can from nowhere. He pummels Johnny Grunge with it, and ref didn't do shit about it. So then Disco and Wright jump Johnny Grunge in the corner. Rocco Rock leaves, and then he brings a ladder to the ring. Shivani and Tenay are wondering why the fuck this match is still going on while Disco blatantly used a trash can. Rocco finally gets to the ring. He nails Wright with the ladder. Disco and Wright leave the match, much to Tokyo Magnum's confusion. After a long-ass while, Disco and Wright bring out a third table. Then Disco declares that this match is now a street fight. Shivani says, "Where the fuck have you been? Me and Tenay have already established it's a street fight up here." Tenay and Shivani already established that it was a street fight. Okay, it's a street fight now, so that's what it was. This fucking stupid shit. So the ref makes a silly, overdramatic gesture to signify the match is now indeed a street fight. So Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge go running into the back again. They come out with some of Raven's Looney Tune weapons.
They go to the back during the match.
Multiple times.
Yes.
And it indeed turns into a bullshit Looney Tunes match because fat fuck Public Enemy can't do anything else, apparently. And it was interesting because I had to look twice. Man, Public Enemy's in a standard tag match? Oh, okay, they corrected it. Mid-match.
Yeah.
So Tokyo Magnum came in to help finally, but ends up inadvertently punching Wright in the mush. So they start arguing. Alex Wright leaves again, this time for real. So does Magnum. Then Fat Fuck Public Enemy take 20 years to stack 3 tables and set up a ladder. And then Disco had to roll to the floor to save their slow asses some time. That's how long it took. Disco actually had to roll to the little platform. And somehow they get Disco up the ladder so Grunge can lay him on the tables. Meanwhile, Rocco Rock climbed his fat ass atop some nearby scaffolding and does a fat fuck elbow drop to Disco through the tables. They drag Disco back into the ring for the pin. For some ungodly reason, Tokyo Magnum comes back in and breaks up the pin. So he goes to the top rope and tries to splash Johnny Grunge, who's spinning Disco. Johnny Grunge moves out of the way at the last second, so Magnum ends up splashing Disco. So Disco gets pinned anyway, 1, 2, 3. Worst shit I've ever seen in my life. It's like they told Public Enemy and the Dancing Fools to just go out and kill 15 minutes.
Yeah, this is pretty bad. And the fact that it turned mid-match, to their credit, never seen that before. I didn't think they were going to do the restart thing, though, because the ref was already letting the hardcore match happen.
Right.
So why you needed to restart the match and ring the bell again, I don't know. But
so you can do the over dramatic gesture. And then he came back to break it up. Tokyo Magnum, like, no, we gotta make this go longer.
Yeah. And his Looney Tune-esque trying to jump on the person and he moves out the way.
Yep.
Very hokey.
I'm glad that's behind me. I never want to see that again. So they kick it to the internet location. Tony the Tiger is talking to special guest Dean Malenko. Malenko is going to be the special guest referee for the Cruiserweight title match between Juventud Guerrera and Chris Jericho. And Tony wants to know if Malenko can be an impartial referee. Malenko says, yep. Then we have Raven versus Saturn versus Canyon in a Ravens rules match, which is no disqualifications, no count out, falls count anywhere. And this is a perfect type of match to have after that piece of shit tag match we were just subjected to. I really hope somebody brings out a shopping cart full of ridiculous weapons. Actually, they didn't use too many weapons in this one, so that was good. I didn't really think about that till just now. This was pretty tame as far as Ravens matches go. And that's saying a lot.
I did want to point out, though, this match, I was listening to it on my headset.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to hear Raven's music. It's actually pretty good.
If you say so.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's better than Mortis's. It does a beat switch to generic WCW music.
Yeah.
So Lodi had an elaborate sign message that said Sturgis is for losers and their fat old ladies. We hate Harleys. Biker girls are fat and ugly.
I also do point out, and I don't know if this was just the cameraman understanding the assignment, but the women they showed actually was not bad this time. You know, the first one, it seemed like
they were creatures.
Yes, they were looking for the creatures.
Creatures from under a bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, they definitely improved.
Yeah. God, that first one.
Well, at least Bischoff didn't make out with any of them.
True.
So Saturn came out still wearing that goddamn bandana that made him look like a partially covered penis. Apparently Canyon's on Raven's side now or some stupid shit. So this is going to be closer to a handicap match. That's what commentary said. And it starts off with Raven telling Canyon to go get him on the mic. And Saturn proceeds to beat the fuck out of Canyon. Raven watches. Raven brings in a chair and hits Saturn with it. Then he tosses the chair at Canyon to use. Canyon just looks defiant at Raven. Then Raven shoves Canyon face first into the steel ring post. So I guess Raven's a fucking liar. So Raven employs a strategy where he lets Canyon and Saturn fight. Then he takes out whoever wins the exchange. So like Canyon and Saturn will fight. And then let's say Saturn knocks Canyon on his ass. And the Raven will come in behind Saturn, take him out. And they'll throw them both out of the ring. So then like they recover and they see each other and they start fighting again. And then Raven just watches. Well, eventually, Saturn and Canyon, they're fighting while Raven's sitting in the corner, and they stop. They look at each other, then they look at Raven. So then they start double teaming Raven. They do a couple double team moves that I'm sure have a proper name. Canyon does rolling Russian leg sweeps, which was really cool. And then Saturn immediately hit a leg drop from the top rope after the third Russian leg sweep. The funny thing is, Canyon rammed Raven into Saturn before the leg sweeps, but Saturn didn't seem to be bothered by it at all. And Canyon breaks up the pin attempt after Saturn's leg drop, hits Raven with a swinging fisherman suplex. Saturn breaks up that pin. Then Saturn and Canyon look at each other. So then they start fighting again. Raven hits Saturn and Canyon with a single chair shot because their heads were so close together. Then they go to the floor. They all start fighting up to the entrance ramp. Canyon hits Saturn with a pile driver on the stage. Then Raven drop kicks him back down the entrance ramp. Saturn ends up jumping on Raven and Canyon from the stage. Then he fights Raven back to the ring. They do a double sleeper hold spot, then a double jawbreaker spot. And Shivani goes on and on about how we see something different every time at WCW, even though we've already seen that spot, that exact spot. I think those same exact people, too.
Yeah.
So Raven does a Tower of Power, then goes for a double even flow. He hits Saturn with it, but Canyon blocks the even flow by holding onto the ropes. Canyon pulls Raven back out onto the floor, tries to pin Saturn. Then Canyon climbs the stupid scaffolding, tries to splash Raven, but misses. Appears Lodi pulled Raven out of the harm's way. Even though it's Falls Count Anywhere and Canyon's clearly the weaker guy right now, Raven goes back in the ring after Saturn, who's recovered. He hits Raven with the Death Valley driver. Lodi breaks up the pin. Then Horus comes out with a stop sign. So there's our Looney Tune weapon. He's about to nail Saturn with a stop sign, and for some reason, Lodi comes on Saturn's other side, and he has white powder. So naturally, Horus gets hit with the powder, and he ends up clobbering Lodi with the sign. Then Horus goes after Saturn again with a stop sign, and he ends up hitting Raven with it. Then Saturn shit cans Horus out of the ring. He hits Raven with a Death Valley driver, 1, 2, 3.
Horus didn't do any good. He actually made things worse.
I think they said that. Like, the flock did not help Raven at all today.
They didn't.
It was better than I expected. Well, after that tag match, anything would be better. This wasn't as ridiculous as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, they worked well together.
Well, up next, we have Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio Jr. And the winner of this match becomes the number 1 contender for the WCW Cruiserweight title on a later date. And Mysterio looks like he's still hitting the weight bench and the tanning bed. And it starts off really, really slow. Then Psychosis takes over with his power, beats the fuck out of Mysterio. He goes to the top rope for something, and Rey's able to get a foot up to block the move. And he takes control. He sends Psychosis out of the ring with a Frankensteiner, then poses on the turnbuckle. The bikers all rev their engines for Rey, which is interesting because I don't know if they would have done that 2 years ago. Not that crowd. So Rey goes for another Frankensteiner, but Psychosis counters with a sit-down powerbomb. He sits Rey on the top rope and hits a Frankensteiner. And Psychosis goes to the top rope again. Rey drop kicks him out of the ring. The ring itself is on a platform, and then there's a floor, which made a lot of cool noises. So yeah, Psychosis lands on the platform, and then Rey hits a springboard flip move. And then Psychosis hits Rey with a modified spine buster. He goes for a drop kick while Rey's against the ropes. Rey sidesteps. Psychosis just tumbles on his ass. Then Rey hits a springboard Frankensteiner, planting Psychosis skull first on the mat. 1, 2, 3.
Boy, did he plant. Psychosis didn't rotate at all. Just like forehead to mat.
And thankfully, he seemed okay.
Yeah.
It was a good match. It wasn't any different than their other matches, though.
Yeah, it was pretty much the same.
Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Stevie Ray for the WCW TV title. And Chavo comes out with his horse, Pepe, a pink wooden horse. Apparently, Chavo claims to be the TV champion because Chavo went through Stevie Ray's shit and stole some official paperwork or something. Apparently, the belt isn't enough. You actually need documentation to prove you're champion. Well, Chavo comes out, grabs a mic, says he's the real champ, and tells Stevie Ray to come out. Apparently, Stevie Ray somehow took the TV title from Booker, and then Booker went away and hid.
Yeah, they didn't really fill in the blank here. So I didn't know. Even when they did the announcement, they said he proclaims to be the television champion, that being Stevie Ray. So Chavo is claiming that he's the champion to a guy that's also not the champion. That's what I gathered.
Well, Chavo tells Stevie Ray that he's the champion, not Stevie Ray, and then demands the title. Well, Stevie Ray just looks at Chavo, then eventually has to be held back by the referee. Well, Chavo tells Stevie Ray that if he wants the match, they have to do the ceremonial handshake first. Stevie Ray, of course, refuses the handshake. Well, then Chavo dropkicks Stevie in the knee, starts pummeling him. Chavo runs away, hits Stevie a couple times, but no effect. And Stevie Ray finally gets his hands on Chavo. Chavo thumbs Stevie in the eyes, then runs away some more. Eventually, Stevie Ray catches Chavo, hits a slapjack 1-2-3. He's like, he's about to get this slapjack. And after the match, Stevie Ray says that anyone who thinks he's a joke can get what Chavo just got. And he says he's not finished with Chavo, and if anybody has a problem, to come out and stop him. And Eddie came out just before Stevie can hit Chavo with the title belt, and Stevie Ray grudgingly leaves, and Chavo gets mad at Eddie. Man, I wanted to see Chavo just get stomped.
Oh, he got squashed. I blinked and the match was over.
I just wanted to see Stevie Ray beat his ass for 2 minutes. Instead, it was Chavo running away, and then Stevie finally got him and hit a move, and it was over. I didn't get that cathartic release of seeing a man just take the soul of another man.
Like that one match where it was just like a beatdown thing.
Yes, like John Cena and Brock Lesnar. That's such a fucking therapeutic match to watch.
I was going for like Bret Hart and Vince McMahon.
Okay, yeah, that too.
Just an uncomfortable beating.
Even the heel commentators, like, okay.
Yeah.
So we go back to the internet position. Tony the Tiger is talking to Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho says it's a conspiracy having Malenko officiate his match, but he's going to finish Juventud Guerrero for good. And then we get a special brother versus brother grudge match. And out comes Rick Steiner. And as soon as Rick Steiner's music stops playing, J.J. Dillon appears on the ring apron. He apologizes to Rick and says this match can't happen tonight. Rick says he knows Scott's in the building. Bring his ass out here right now. And Dillon reminds Rick that he's the one that hit Scott in the head with a chair. Now the doctors won't clear him for the match. So it's Rick's fault. Well, Buff Bagwell comes out in a neck brace. He rolls Scott Steiner out in a gurney. Scott has a leg and an arm bandaged up, and he has a neck brace. He has like oxygen tubes in his nose, and it looks like he's hooked up to some sort of IV bag.
Yes. But no, I don't know. The part that the IV's connected to, he wasn't getting current fluids at this very moment.
Buff wants Rick to see what he did to his own brother, and he asks Scott if he's okay. Scott's like, because he has the oxygen mask on. And then the crowd starts chanting bullshit immediately. Dillon tells Buff he's right. Scott's doctors say he's out for 2 weeks. But there's a stipulation in the contract that states if the match doesn't happen at Sturgis, WCW reserves the right to reschedule in 45 days or something. It doesn't matter, though, because Dillon says the match is happening at the next pay-per-view, which is the War Games. Buff tells Dillon that the doctors may have said 2 weeks, but it could take longer than that. And he doesn't think Scott will be ready. Well, Dillon says if Scott Steiner does not turn up for the match, Scott Steiner will be barred for wrestling for life. And then Rick just charges the entrance ramp, and Scott leaps off the gurney and runs away with Bagwell. Full speed.
It's a miracle.
Miracle. He sat up first. I thought he sat up because he said he was being barred from wrestling, but no, it was Rick chasing after him.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to wait for that Rick and Scott Steiner confrontation. I didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah, I think you said they took forever to get to it, seeing as he's turned on him like, what, 3-4 pay-per-views ago?
Yeah, Scott definitely ducked his brother for a while. I'm just waiting for Chucky to help Scott.
I was just thinking, we haven't even got Chucky yet. Seeing as we're getting all these celebrity appearances, we haven't even got Chucky yet.
Well, up next is Brian Adams versus Mongo McMichael. Apparently, Mongo's trying to bring back the Four Horsemen. He's just tried to recruit Arn at this point, and I don't think he was successful because Arn's, retired. It starts off with both men being all sportsman-like. Like, they lock up. Mongo backed Adams in the corner. They have a clean break. And Mongo looks in the camera and goes, "That's how good guys act." And then Adams does it to Mongo. They have a clean break again. Then they do a test of strength. Adams hits the cheap shot. And then Mongo hits the ugliest DDT I've ever seen. He does a hell of a kick to Adams in the corner, but Adams catches Mongo and tosses him like a sack of shit. Then he tosses Mongo out of the ring. Virgil throws him in the steel steps. Then Adams goes for a top rope knee drop and misses. Mongo hits Adams with a belly to back suplex, starts doing NFL chop blocks. Adams punches Mongo in the throat, goes for a pile driver or something, but Mongo's foot grazes the referee, so the ref's out cold. Then Virgil comes in with a chair while Adams holds Mongo, and Mongo moves out of the way at the last second. Virgil whacks Adams. So that seemed to be the move of the night, is some guy holds some guy's arms and ends up getting whacked.
Yep.
And then Mongo hits the tombstone, 1, 2, 3. Apparently, this was a huge upset.
An upset?
That's what they said.
Okay.
Right? Like, oh no, Brian Adams lost.
Yeah, what has he won?
The last time we saw Mongo, I think he lost to Goldberg. I don't understand how this was an upset at all.
I don't know.
But yeah, what a nothing match.
Yeah, this one was hard for me to get into.
Oh boy. Well, they kick it to Mean Gene again. Gene just pimps the motorcycle brand again, and he says he's gonna have lunch or something with a big wig from said motorcycle brand. Riveting shit. When he's not pimping the hotline, he's telling us about his non-interesting personal life.
There was a point, I don't know if it had already happened, but Shivani was talking about you can get like any kind of leather you want there.
Yeah, they were doing okay. So in between the matches, they were cutting to Sturgis, like the city. They would mention like all the cool shit around the area, like, oh, you can do all this stuff. Well, one segment, Shivani's like, oh yeah, you can get any kind of leather you want, any kind at all. And then Heenan said something about stuff that vibrates and inflatable shit. It got really X-rated real quick.
Yeah. Kind of like last
The ass
when they
biting.
started teasing Tony for the ass biting. You can tell he was like blushing. Stop it.
Well, Tony brought it up this time. He's like, you can get any kind of leather you want. You want assless chaps? They got you here. They have shit I've never even seen before.
Yeah, you can tell he's probably into that leather stuff.
I don't even want to think about it. Juventud Guerrera versus Chris Jericho for the Cruiserweight title. And again, our special guest referee is Dean Malenko. And Malenko comes out first. And Tenay says Malenko spent an entire summer being referee once. And that's important, I guess. And Shivani wants Malenko to take everything he's learned and just throw it out the window. He does not want this to be an evenly called match. And a fan had a sign in the crowd that said Jericho versus Raven for the World Whiner Championship. And what made this sign funny to me was it was a grown-ass man holding it up very proudly.
Well, my saddest part of this whole thing was at one point they showed I guess it was a couple. The girl was on the guy's shoulders, as they're panning to the crowd. She reaches at the bottom of her shirt and starts to pull in an upward motion, and the camera cuts away.
Cameraman must be gay or something.
They're like, cut. And it was funny because I was pretty much just thinking, it's like, I'm surprised no one in the crowd flashed. Because they're the biker chicks, so.
It seemed like a really tame crowd for bikers. I wonder if it was because of the Tonight Show. I wonder if they had like extra security or some shit.
Maybe.
So Jericho comes out, he grabs a mic, tells the crowd he wants them to want him. And then Jericho says he was riding across town in his Honda and realized he doesn't want to perform in front of a bunch of weekend warrior motorcyclers that are in the crowd right now. This causes the crowd to rev their stupid motorcycle engines. And then Jericho says the crowd isn't true bikers and they all know it. So Jericho and Hoovy, they start off going back and forth. Malenko gets in Jericho's face early, letting us know the type of official he's going to be. Jericho tosses Hoovy out of the ring. Malenko tries to back Jericho up. Jericho tells him to shut up. Off camera, Malenko they show it in the replay. He just grabs a handful of his hair and tosses him. So Hoovy fucks up his knee doing a dive from out of the ring over the platform and onto the floor. So again, the ring's on this big ass platform thing. And Shivani at one point calls out Malenko for using a slower count for Jericho's pin attempts, even though he begged Malenko to throw the rule book out earlier. By the way, Malenko did not use a different count. He just wasn't in a hurry at all.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was. I mean, they were both slow, but I couldn't tell if the Jericho counts were slower.
I don't think so.
But they were both pretty slow.
Well, Hoovy hits a springboard crossbody, then goes to the top rope and tries another crossbody. And Jericho just catches him and turns it into a Michinoku driver. Then he beats the fuck out of Hoovy for a while and goes for a lion salt. Hoovy's able to get his knee up at the last second, starts to fire up, hits a head scissor, and Jericho snatches Hoovy and goes for a release German suplex, and Hoovy just basically does a backflip. He lands on his feet. Then he goes for a Frankensteiner, and Jericho catches him, delivers a double powerbomb, And he shoots Hoovy into the ropes, and it looks like he's going to go for another powerbomb, but Hoovy turns into a DDT. And Hoovy hits the Hoovy driver. He goes for the 450 splash. Jericho recovered and crotched him on the ropes. And he hits Hoovy with a superplex. He goes for a lion tamer, and Hoovy immediately goes to the ropes. Then Jericho gets in Malenko's face saying Hoovy gave up to ring the bell. And Malenko didn't even speak to him. And Hoovy gets Jericho in the corner. Malenko goes to stop it. Somehow Hoovy hits Malenko, and then Jericho uses the distraction to clock Hoovy with the cruiserweight title. Jericho slaps Malenko, tells him to pull his head out of his ass, and Hoovy kicks out. Jericho shits himself. He kicks it into another gear and starts wailing on Hoovy. He sits Hoovy on the top rope. Hoovy starts fighting back, and he goes for something. He hits Jericho, who's still sitting. So, okay. Jericho's sitting on the top rope. He goes up to do something. Malenko pulls him off. And then Malenko goes to do something to Jericho, or I talk to him, or I don't know, wish him well. And then Jericho kicks him right in the face. And then Hoovy, for some reason, just charges at Malenko. Malenko picks him up, launches him in Jericho's direction, who's still sitting on the top rope. And Hoovy hits a Frankensteiner, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, didn't make too much sense there.
Yeah, and after the match, Jericho goes after Malenko, and he got clocked for it. And then Hoovy celebrated as the 2-time Cruiserweight champion.
And I forgot, Ray earlier, he won for the number 1 contendership, so we're getting Hoovy versus Ray.
Yeah,
There you go.
I guess we are.
Or I'm sure Jericho's going to find a way to get the title back. He'll have some grievance that, will get him his title back.
Oh, well, Hoovy wrestles Silver King, so.
Oh, no.
I don't know what happens there. That's not even what was advertised. Juventud Guerrero versus Kaz Hayashi was the match that was originally advertised. What happened to Rey Mysterio?
Well, they did just say at a later date. They didn't say next. Although he should be next because he's the number 1 contender now.
Right. NWO Invitational Battle Royal. Participants are eliminated by pinfall or getting tossed over the top rope. And NWO Hollywood comes out first, and that's Scott Hall, the Giant, Mr. Perfect, Scott Norton, and that is it. Scott Hall does a survey, very close between Wolfpack and Goldberg, but I think Goldberg won. Hall said the NWO Hollywood had won anyway. Then NWO Wolfpack come out. It's Kevin Nash, Sting, who's apparently off his meds, judging by the way he came out. He came out like an airplane, like woo. Lex Luger and Conan. And Nash grabs the mic to say Wolfpack's in the house, and then Conan does his Mexican shtick
in front of the biker crowd. But they did play along, so there's that.
They were an LA biker crowd.
Yeah.
So Goldberg comes out. He's 129-0 at this point. I think he's the only one at this point also to get pyro.
No, Giant got pyro.
I thought he got smoke.
Yeah. No, he got a little pop of pyro.
Okay. Well, it starts off with just the NWO fighting. Hall and Nash were going at it, which was cool. Goldberg was kind of just watching, and then he got into it with Giant for a bit. Then Hall tries to razor's edge Goldberg out of the ring as an elimination. Goldberg, of course, back body dropped him out of the ring. So goodbye, Scott Hall. Nash eliminates himself to go after Hall and continue kicking his ass, which he did. And Perfect gets a spear early, which poor Mr. Perfect. Giant and Goldberg start fighting again. Giant hits Goldberg with a fucking Russian leg sweep. Goldberg spears Conan, then tosses him out of the ring. I forgot Conan was even in the match, to be honest.
But he did the rowdy and bowdy.
Yeah, whatever.
Orale!
Mr. Perfect and Giant double team Goldberg. And fucking Mr. Perfect gets hit with another spear and tossed out of the ring. And Goldberg eliminates Sting and Norton while they were doing their elimination dance on the ropes. Like, you know that thing where they're, who's going to dump who over the rope?
Yeah.
Goldberg spears Luger, then Giant picks him up and tosses him out of the ring for the elimination. So for some reason, they decided to have Goldberg eliminate everybody but Luger. And then Giant hits Goldberg with a choke slam. Goldberg does an Undertaker sit-up, spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3. And you know, you have a really shitty pay-per-view on your hands when the Battle Royal is one of the best matches.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's some good matches at the beginning. It was just thrown off track by that tag team match.
Probably my favorite Battle Royal of all time. It's quick. I don't think Goldberg broke a sweat. He took a choke slam and just sat up.
Yeah, he played the perfect Battle Royal game. that they kept pointing out because he kept his back to the ropes and he'd just wait for openings.
When he vined the leg, when Mr. Perfect tried to throw him over the rope.
Yeah,
Oh, look at him vine the leg. He's so smart. I bet he tastes like cinnamon.
pretty much.
It is interesting that they had the World Heavyweight Champion in a Battle Royal on a pay-per-view, though.
Yeah, and it seemingly was for nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
You gotta love those.
This would also be the second pay-per-view that Goldberg has been champion that he has not main evented.
Well, I mean, you got the mighty Jay Leno. Of course, you can't main event a pay per view.
Well, finally, Buffer's in the ring for the moment we've all been waiting for. Hollywood Hogan and Eric Bischoff versus Diamond Dallas Page and goddamn Jay Leno. Bischoff and Hogan come out with Miss Elizabeth in The Disciple. Bischoff is wearing some auto dealer's Letterman jacket and Temu Adidas pants. Only thing Buffer said for their entrance is that The Disciple is dangerous. DDP, Leno, and Kevin Eubanks, Leno's band leader, comes out to the fucking Tonight Show theme. Leno doesn't look any less ridiculous than Bischoff, and he's fucking sipping coffee or something. Oh, it's water. He tosses at Bischoff and Hogan. Hogan makes a sound guy on the floor move for no reason, tossed his chair further down the floor like a dick. DDP and Hogan start. Hogan pulls DDP's hair and they trade slaps. Leno gets a cheap shot on Hogan. Then DDP hits a swinging neckbreaker. Hogan rolls to the floor. Kevin Eubanks grabs Hogan and tosses him in the steel ring post before tossing him back in the ring. For some reason, the dangerous disciple just stood, watched, and did nothing. Bischoff gets tagged in, did karate to DDP before getting kicked in the face. Leno unfortunately got tagged in. Bischoff ran and tagged Hulk Hogan in. Leno dared Hogan to hit him in the chin, then made fun of him for being bald. Then Leno ran away like a pussy and tagged DDP back in. DDP beats Hogan, then tags Leno back in. Leno gets Hogan, the man with the 24-inch pythons, in an arm wrench. So they do an arm wrench thing for a while. Hogan backs Leno in the corner. Ref backs Hogan off. So there's been interference. Hogan's been cheap shotted. They've made fun of him for being bald, of all things. And the ref is telling him to back off.
Yeah.
So then Leno and DDP double team Hogan, and of course the ref allowed it. See, Hogan keeps getting fucked. He's the real babyface. Leno and DDP then hit Hogan with a double clothesline. Hogan grabs a chair. Eubanks takes it from Hogan and hits him with it. Bischoff comes in and does more karate to DDP. And then DDP starts firing back on Bischoff. Disciple hands Hogan a pair of knucks. He clocks Page with them, and Page kicked out. So great. Hogan spits on Leno, causing him to try to come in the ring. Then Hogan gets DDP in the corner and clocks him with the knucks again, while the ref was distracted by Leno. And Hogan hits DDP with a big boot. DDP hits a discus clothesline. They're both in a position where they need to tag in their non-wrestling partners. And Bischoff pokes Leno in the eye. Leno uppercuts Bischoff in the balls. Leno kicks Bischoff's ass. It's a fucking stupid match. Hogan comes in for the save. Bischoff grabs Leno and ends up getting punched by Hogan. And then DDP and Hogan tumble out of the ring. Kevin Eubanks comes in the ring and diamond cuts Bischoff. And Leno covers Bischoff 1, 2, 3. One of Bischoff's shoulders was clearly off the mat, but fuck it. I'm glad it's over. And after having been fucked, Hogan, Bischoff, and the Disciple jump DDP, Leno, and Eubanks. And then Goldberg comes out because why not? And Goldberg hits Bischoff and Hogan with a double spear. And then we say goodbye while the good guys celebrate.
Yes. And not to mention, he never took his belt off.
No, he didn't.
So he runs out there with his belt on his waist. He gets in the ring, spears both Hogan and Bischoff at the same time, with the belt still on. And then they all celebrate at the end.
Ooh, lad, this was a rough one.
Yes, it was.
I almost messaged you and asked if you wanted to start doing movies.
Probably been better at that point.
My God.
But yeah, you thought it was going to be bad, and it ended up being just as bad as you thought, or I thought.
And I wanted Leno to get his ass kicked so bad. He's running
He
around
didn't take
like
any.
no, he didn't get hit once. And he's running around like hit me in the chin, hit me in the chin, and then he does his little sucker punches and runs away like a little faggot, and then tags DDP in or just runs away.
There was that moment where Bischoff was peppering him in the corner, but Yeah, pretty much there was no. He didn't take a bump. I know that.
He's the one that needed the bump.
Yeah,
He didn't get any comeuppance. I just wanted to see him get power bombed or something.
and that was the point. Like you wanted to see him get something, and he got nothing.
Well, especially if he's gonna be all cocky, like, come on, hit me in the chin. I'm a non-wrestler. I'm telling Hulk Hogan to punch me in the face.
Yeah, and then making fun of his baldness, and
Yeah. I'm getting the 24-inch pythons and an arm wrench. And Hogan has to sell it and doesn't get anything.
it was yeah a publicity stunt. Because at the time, the Jay Leno show was pretty big, so
I get that, but shit. If you're gonna have Jay Leno on a pay-per-view, I think there's better ways to utilize him.
yeah, at least let him get something.
Have a match at the Tonight Show studio or something. Have him special guest referee. Anything. Don't have him in the match. Don't have him in the match and don't let him get offense on Hulk fucking Hogan. And then have Hulk Hogan just get his ass kicked.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, from the looks of things, Kevin Eubanks should have been in the match over Jay Leno, but he's not the
Yeah.
name. So, but he had guns.
He kind of looked like Virgil.
Yeah, I was like, golly, I don't remember him being that muscular. Not that I was a big Jay Leno guy.
You seem to know more than I do.
I've watched him before with his little.
Well, that was Road Wild 98. Was being the important word here.
Yes, it's behind us. Never to be thought of again. Probably ranked one of the worst pay per views in history.
It is for me. I don't care what anybody else says. This might be the worst pay-per-view I've ever seen.
It would be for me, but the first Road Wild or Hog Wild, whatever the hell the name was.
Oh, no, that one was good. They had the Steiners versus Harlem Heat. Fuck that. No, that was real good. Compared to this one?
But you had Eric Bischoff. No, that was the NWO Sold Out.
Oh, okay. With the contest?
Yes. Well, he's telling them, I'm going to tell you the tiebreaker, but I'm going to whisper it to you in your ear. Yeah, that's great television.
Okay, that I'll give you. For me, this one edges it.
Fair
just for that tag. Because at least the matches and Sold Out were okay. Especially Eddie Guerrero and Master 6.
Yeah, it did have some good matches, but that segment.
Understood. Well, we can tentatively look forward to WCW Fall Brawl 98 War Games. It's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Of course, the main event is the War Games match, and it is Team WCW, which is Diamond Dallas Page, Roddy Piper, and The Warrior versus NWO Hollywood. It's Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, and Stevie Ray. And NWO Wolfpack. It's Kevin Nash, Sting, and Lex Luger, which that's the most WCW team of them all.
Yeah.
So that is, our next WCW pay-per-view. But before that, we have WrestleMania 33, which took place at Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. It's the third WrestleMania to be held in Florida after 24 and 28, which the 24 was in Orlando, same stadium, and 28, of course, was in Miami. The New Day served as hosts, and it was the first WrestleMania to feature Goldberg since WrestleMania 20. And for the first time since WrestleMania 29, 2 world championships were contested. It's the Raw's Universal Championship and SmackDown's WWE Championship. And it marked the first time that the Universal Championship, SmackDown Women's Championship, and the new Cruiserweight Championship were defended at WrestleMania. The event also marked the surprise return of the Hardy Boys, and it was also the first WrestleMania to be on air past midnight Eastern Time.
Great. What's our runtime? Like 7 hours?
I didn't even
There is actually one that is 7 hours, but it's not this one.
13 matches were contested at the event. In the main event, Roman Reigns faced The Undertaker. It was a no-holds-barred match. In the main match for Raw, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg ran their WrestleMania 20 stinker back for the Universal Championship. Stone Cold was not the special guest referee this time. The main SmackDown match was Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt. It was for the WWE Championship. Doesn't look like any special stipulation for that. Other matches, both good and bad. We have AJ Styles versus Killer Shane McMahon. And we have Seth Rollins versus Triple H in an unsanctioned match. I bet he still gets a full, cool entrance.
Of course.
And that is our WrestleMania Rewind.
Looking good, kind of, for WrestleMania. I'm now definitely in the moments of seeing it before, so
I'm in new territory WrestleMania wise, but it's the current people that I don't watch. So it's like,
yeah, we'll get through it.